Hello and welcome to another edition of Arizona Wildlife Views. I'm Josh Avey, the Terrestrial Wildlife Branch Chief for the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Today on Arizona Wildlife Views, some very special conservation milestones. The black-footed ferret was once on the brink of extinction. We'll show you the amazing reintroduction of this little predator in Arizona. Plus, we'll show you the recovery efforts that helped the California condor thrive again in Arizona and Utah. And later, we'll take a closer look at our nationally recognized bald eagle Nestwatch program. We've got all this and more starting right now on Arizona Wildlife Views.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Our passion at Arizona Game and Fish Department is to conserve and protect Arizona's amazing wildlife resources for current and future generations to come. Today we take a look at some of our latest success stories.
We've got 20 years of cooperative, collaborative conservation.
So our first site was Aubrey Valley in 1996, and then in 2007 we had Babbitt Ranches join under a safe harbor, and today the Double O Ranch is going to become our third official site in Arizona, and they're going to be under a safe harbor agreement. So we're standing on the third official site for ferret reintroductions. So thank you, everybody.
In October of 2016, Arizona Game and Fish celebrated a milestone for its work with endangered black-footed ferrets.
2016 marked our 20th anniversary of releasing ferrets in Arizona. They weren't sure if ferrets were going to make it here, but the project's been a success.
Back in 1996, Game and Fish released ferrets for the very first time in the Aubrey Valley near Seligman, Arizona. It's great habitat because it's prime prairie dog country, and prairie dogs are the #1 food source for ferrets. Now 6 more are being released on the Double O Ranch, the newest private property owner to partner with the Ferret Project. Other partners that make ferret conservation possible include the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Phoenix Zoo.
For Phoenix Zoo, it is the 25th year of working with them. And we've had an average of 20 ferrets born a year at this facility.
The zoo started raising ferrets in 1991. It's one of 6 captive breeding facilities that raises ferrets for release at 28 sites across 8 western states, Mexico, and Canada. Without facilities like this, black-footed ferrets would probably no longer exist. In the 1970s, they were thought to be extinct. Then in 1981, a small colony was discovered in Wyoming. Several years later, disease nearly wiped them out, but 18 ferrets were captured and placed into a captive breeding program.
We have to pay attention to the behaviors that they need to survive, like being able to catch food.
Breeding facilities like the Phoenix Zoo are challenged with raising ferrets in captivity that are ready for the wild.
Predator avoidance behaviors, like we don't want them to stay up above ground for very long.
So that behavior of them taking the food down, that's something we're definitely paying attention to. If we see them eating up top for prolonged periods of time or not taking that food down, it's definitely something to note. It could be an animal that is potentially not fit for release.
What you see at this facility are these enclosures that have a surface area, but they also have a tunnel that goes down to a nest box. In a way, this setup, even though it doesn't look at all like a prairie dog town, it's actually the identical kind of habitat resource that they would need.
Monitoring Arizona's ferret population isn't easy because ferrets are nocturnal.
They're food source prairie dogs, they're out all day long, but the ferrets, they like to go in the burrows at night and take a prairie dog while they're sleeping, so.
So several times a year, volunteers help Game and Fish conduct spotlighting surveys.
So you're gonna be driving 5 to 10 miles an hour. You're just gonna be sweeping your spotlight back and forth.
The night begins with an orientation.
That just kind of helps you to know where roughly you're going to see ferrets most likely.
Volunteers learn how to find ferrets and how to capture them with a trap.
And push up this door as such.
Well, last night we saw 3 badgers, saw 2 of the black-footed ferrets, trapped 1.
Volunteer Robert Coonrod is a spotlighting regular.
I enjoy it. It's like it's my vacation, like getting away from the city. We're driving around usually about 3 miles an hour, and we're looking for eye shine.
That's a badger, but ferrets have that same brilliant green eye shine.
And when you see the green eye shine, we stop the truck, we try to locate the ferret, see which hole he's gone down, then we'll place a trap, only if we can guarantee that that's the hole that the ferret went down. And then we come back and check those traps every hour. This is a confirmed sighting, yes.
On this night, Robert didn't catch a ferret, but other spotlighters did.
They'll bring it into our processing RV.
Every ferret gets a microchip if they don't have one already, and they're immunized against plague and canine distemper.
We'll give it a shot of penicillin, we'll take its vitals, we'll pluck some hair for a DNA sample.
After a ferret is processed, the spotlighters release it where they found it.
It's a good feeling that you're trying to bring back an animal that was declared extinct twice.
Maybe one day this endangered species will simply be a common species. Now that would be something to celebrate.
There's still a lot of work to be done.
Back in 1996, Condor number 50 took to the air as the first California condor to fly free again in Arizona, thanks to a captive breeding program that has brought them back from the brink of extinction.
You know, when you consider that there were 22 individuals in 1982, and today there are over 400 birds in total, the species has by far and away been saved from extinction, but now we're to the point where we have more birds in the wild than we have in captivity. That's a real turning point for a recovery effort.
But on this windy day in 2016, these raptors aren't quite ready to take flight.
Do they ever take flight?
Nope.
No, they're just still sitting up there someplace.
Joke's on us.
Yeah, I moved over here.
I'm amazed every year that we have, you know, a couple hundred people drive, whatever, 5 hours from Phoenix or from Salt Lake. We've had people come from the other end of the country. We had people last year from Florida. And so to make the trek here to celebrate National Public Lands Day and the California Condor Recovery Program, to be able to see a condor in the wild and participate, if you will, in one of the most endangered species recovery programs in the world, I guess that's the draw. And today we had easily a couple hundred people.
They're all here to catch a glimpse of the new birds. 2 young California condors raised for this northern Arizona release.
They come from Idaho, and they manage them up in the flight pen up on top of the Paria Plateau. They're up there for several weeks, and then they move them into the release pen for about a week and a half or 2 weeks before we actually release these birds. They're out there to get to see other condors flying around and kind of get used to the environment before they get released, so it's not just throwing them out. The way that the release works here is that the birds are in the release pen, and we, at a set time, which was 11 o'clock, we opened the gates we told the people up at the release site to open the gates, and they remotely open the gates so that they're not chasing the birds out, and we're letting the birds leave at their own will. And today it's a little bit windy, and the birds are not wanting to take their first flight in such a wind, so they're sitting in the release pen right now, still haven't decided to come out yet. So it's what we would call a soft release in wildlife work. It's better to do that with all wildlife that we can, because you're not just throwing them out. They're not having to, evolve or die kind of a situation. They are having the leisure to come out on their own without stress and to figure things out without having it forced upon them by us. And then when they do come out, the Peregrine Fund biologists are here to monitor their every movement for the next several weeks. They will be extremely well tracked by the Peregrine Fund biologists, and they will have essentially constant monitoring for the next several weeks until it's determined that they're doing really well or not. And if they're not doing really well, we may take them into captivity again just to see how they're, if we can't acclimate them to the environment a little better. But we've had a long history of really successful releases using this manner.
On average, we release about a dozen birds a year, and that's usually twofold more than hopefully we lose. And last year we only lost 3 birds, and so the addition of these 2 birds, we're getting close to maintaining that population. But ultimately our goal is to see that through birds released from the captive breeding program and birds that are produced in the wild, that we result in a self-sustaining population is our ultimate goal. Today we have 74 birds in the population, and our goal is 150, and to be reproductively self-sustaining. So this last season we had 12 pairs indicated by exposure. So as the population grows in age, they also grow in the number of breeding pairs. And obviously you have to produce more birds than you lose. So we're in that process of building that self-sustaining population. So one of the things we do, other than just releasing these birds, is we monitor them intensively. We have radio telemetry devices on the birds so we can track them by ground, and we also have some that have GPS transmitters. And what we're trying to learn is what's important to these birds for survival. What are the things that are causes of death? And within those things that cause death, are there any things that we can control? And so what we look at is the lead poisoning on the landscape as the condors come in after the hunting season, and we test their blood sample. We found that they had high levels of lead. So we started working with the department and hunters to eliminate that source of poisoning by using non-lead bullets. And it's been terribly effective with the big game hunting population on the Kaibab, over 80% participation for over 7 years now. Now it's just a matter of how do we get the rest of the hunters who might be out there hunting to use non-lead. So we're now talking to hunters of small game and varmint hunters, and so those ongoing programs to reveal the problems that this condor is having and asking for support is at the crux of recovery.
You can find out more about the recovery efforts for these amazing creatures on the Arizona Game and Fish Department website, 24/7 at azgfd.gov/condor.
This is great. It's a 5-minute bike ride. There's some big wings. There's some big, beautiful wings.
Leah is conserving and protecting Arizona's bald eagles.
Oh, okay. He just left.
So is Eduardo. Lindy is too.
It's an awesome job.
They're all part of the 2017 Arizona Bald Eagle Nestwatch program. It's one of a kind with a long history and proven results.
Over the 40 years of the Nestwatch program, there's nearly been 100 bald eagles that they have saved just by being out there and able to identify when they've gotten themselves into life-threatening situations.
My name's Lindy.
DJ Jones.
My name's Courtney. I'm from Wisconsin.
From Bozeman, Montana.
Tucson, Arizona.
Denver, Colorado.
My name is Eduardo. I am from Veracruz, Mexico, and this is my second season as a Nestwatcher.
Nestwatchers come from in and out of state to help Arizona Game and Fish keep an eye on bald eagle nests during the breeding season.
Welcome, everyone. Super excited to get the season started this year. It's an honor to have you guys here. You're a very important part of the overall eagle management program. You're our eyes and ears out there.
Game and Fish biologists Kenneth Jacobson, Kyle McCarty, and Kurt License are the core of Arizona's bald eagle management program. They get support and guidance from the Southwestern Bald Eagle Management Committee. It's a coalition of federal, state, county, and tribal agencies, along with private businesses and organizations, with a common interest in bald eagle conservation.
It's a little bit of a special year for us. This is the 40th anniversary of the Arizona Bald Eagle Nestwatch program, so it's one of those big years for us.
For the past 4 decades, every year has been big for Arizona's bald eagles.
Back in 1978, when bald eagles were listed as endangered, there was only 11 known breeding areas in Arizona. As of today, we've got 84 breeding areas across the state. Our population is getting bigger each and every year.
And Nestwatchers are a key part of that success. They don't monitor every breeding area, just a dozen or so in areas with a lot of human activity. Bald eagles build their nests near rivers and lakes, the same places people go to recreate. Hiking, boating, horseback riding, really any human activity can disturb eagles and cause their nesting attempts to fail.
You know, if the eggs are uncovered long enough, they'll get cold, obviously, and they'll be non-viable.
Incubation lasts about 35 days, and even after the eggs hatch, it takes about 3 weeks before an eaglet can control its own body temperature.
It's during that period, if people come in and flush those adults off the nest, that's when failures can happen really quick. It could be just a matter of 5, 10, 15 minutes if birds are flushed off the nest at the wrong time.
That's why these Nestwatchers are there, to protect nesting bald eagles from natural and human disturbances. The seasonal job takes place in the field, but it starts in the classroom with a 2-day orientation.
We've got a lot of information to cover over the next couple of days.
Information about the bald eagle's life cycle.
The nestlings, when they first hatch, are these just tiny little bobble-headed guys. Around the 5th week, they're really starting to change over into looking like an eagle.
At about 12 weeks, they're ready to fledge, and Nestwatchers are with them every step of the way. Nestwatchers work 10 days on and 4 days off. On weekends, when public recreation is heaviest, they watch the nests from dawn to dusk. On weekdays, they get to explore the area around the nest to find out how the eagles are using their habitat.
There's basically 3 main goals for the Nestwatch program: data collection, education, and conservation. So first of all, let's talk about data collection.
The male just came into the nest, so I'm going to have to start taking notes about that.
Nestwatchers collect all sorts of data.
What adults you see, what they're doing, any nest activity with the chicks.
Flight paths, perches, prey deliveries.
There's a whole section for human activity and the eagle's reaction.
It's all valuable information used to guide future decisions on bald eagle management.
Education.
It's right in here in the scope. You can use that to focus if you need.
You can expect to be talking to people on pretty much a daily basis.
This is a nice view. Not all nests are this easy to see into, and so like these birds, you can see their eyeballs. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Some of these sites have closures, so you'll be talking to folks about closures and where those boundaries are.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, Sherry, it's a baby.
Believe it or not, there are still people here in Arizona, residents lived in Arizona their entire lives, have never seen a bald eagle.
I do, I see them.
So they don't get the characteristic white head and white tail until they're 5 years old.
What a treat. Oh, thank you very much.
That's a pretty special moment for them. So that gives us a good opportunity to teach them a little bit about bald eagles, their biology, their sensitivities during the nesting process. Conservation, yes. Having you out there on a daily basis, it gives us a chance to identify when those eaglets, when the nestlings, when the adults get themselves into some sort of life-threatening situation.
And that's a red flag.
The orientation ends with an up-close look at several eagles, courtesy of Liberty Wildlife.
So this is Laddie. She got her name. She came in from you guys.
The nonprofit has treated dozens of bald eagle nestlings that were rescued, thanks to Nestwatchers who notified Game and Fish when the birds were in trouble. Nestwatchers work in teams of 2. They're assigned specific breeding areas with pre-selected campsites and observation points far enough from the nest so they don't disturb the eagles.
It's going to be really hard to top today.
After 2 months on the job, we caught up with Courtney and Peter, who are monitoring the Whiskey Springs breeding area at Lake Pleasant.
It's cool to see where they've been. You know, they like perch right here.
They're standing at the edge of a cliff directly above the nest they've been watching from across the lake.
So the little peninsula out on the corner, we park our tent pretty close to the water.
It's a special day because they're helping Game and Fish band the nestling.
We band the young at 6 weeks old because at this age, they're old enough to handle a little bit of that stress, but they're not old enough that they can fly.
I have never done anything like that before. I mean, holding a large raptor like that was pretty incredible.
Several weeks after the nestling is banded at Lake Pleasant, we visit the Sycamore breeding area on the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation. Leah and Jen have been monitoring this breeding area for the past 7 years.
The big difference here is we have a new male. The male that was here previously was banded. He was 25 years old. A tribal member found his body along the river in January. First year that this area was active was in '97, and he was a 5-year-old male at that time. That's generally when eagles start to breed, is at 5 years old. There were only a few years that they didn't have chicks, so he put a lot of young eagles out into the population, which is awesome.
It's just fun. It's like getting to know somebody, except a bald eagle.
It's pretty easy for Nestwatchers to become emotionally attached to the eagles they're watching.
Yeah, you walk that line between getting super attached and being objective and just scientific about it.
The one word of advice that I've got, failures do happen. We've had nestlings right at the edge of fledging fly from the nest, and before they hit the ground, there's coyotes already at a dead run heading for that nestling.
The eaglet banded at Lake Pleasant earlier in this story died in the nest only weeks away from fledging.
Found out we had some parasite issues that we'll have to deal with in the future.
Nature can be cruel and unpredictable, but the Nestwatch program gives a handful of eagles a better shot at survival.
The ultimate goal of the program is to produce as many nestlings as possible, as many young bald eagle fledglings taking to the sky at the end of the season.
In 5 years, they'll be raising nestlings of their own. Bald eagles were removed from the endangered species list in 2007, but they're still protected by state and federal law. And while Arizona's population is relatively small, it's growing, thanks in part to the Arizona Bald Eagle Nestwatch program.
Very much a program that's got 40 years of success, and it's that success that keeps it going into the future.
Arizonans are passionate about their wildlife resources, and Arizona Game and Fish Department is too. Until next time, I'm Josh Avey, and remember, get out there and enjoy those Arizona wildlife views.
To subscribe to Arizona Wildlife Views magazine, which includes the Arizona Wildlife Views calendar, call 1-800-777-0015 or visit www.azgfd.gov/magazine.